Happy Hump Day. Welcome into a Wednesday, December 4th edition of Daily Faceoff Live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today and use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, and he is our guest co-host of the day, Steven Ellis. How's it going, Mr. Ellis? And thank you for popping on.
Yeah, no problem. I've been looking out the window a little bit. It's starting to snow. I'm terrified. Snow sucks. Let's not have it, please.
Snow sucks, buddy. You should see my driveway when I got home from my 5-day nation vacation. I got a lot of shoveling to do, but I digress. We got a lot to get to today. We got some Four Nations rumbling. Steven is going to give us some World Junior talk in the big segment as well. We also have our Dominion Lending Center's poll question up right now, which is based on the Minnesota Wild. Are they a legit Stanley Cup contender? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, another team in the NHL that's on a pretty good heater is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Steven, a fourth straight dub for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're 11-12-4 now on the year. You start to look at that record and go, okay, that's maybe not all that bad. Tristan Jarry's back in the mix. He's won 3 straight starts for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They win in OT last night. So I ask you, has this heater shown you anything different from Sid and the Pens? Are you maybe starting to believe a little bit?
I'm not convinced yet. I will say it's been really good to see Tristan Jarry in particular going out there and playing as well as he has. You know, he's being 3-0 is good. This is a guy who's been through so many struggles, and he is supposed to be the guy. So when he got sent down to the AHL, it looked like he was a third stringer at one point. That had to be hard mentally on him, but he's starting to figure it out. Now, granted, his advanced analytics are still just not great, but he's getting the wins, and that alone has to be a good start. And when you look at kind of what's happening here, it's not just Crosby going out there and scoring. It's not just Malkin. In fact, Crosby doesn't have a goal in his last 4 games, but he's got 5 points. So does Brian Russ. So does Blake Lizotte. You look at what Phil Tomasino's doing. He's been productive. There's actually 11 players with 3 points in their last 4 games. So the scoring has kind of been all over the place, which is good. That's what this team needed. It couldn't just be the Crosby and Malkin show, but I don't know, man. I still don't know if I trust either Pennsylvania team at this point. It's just when it comes to the Penguins, for me, a big portion of it is what was the goaltending going to look like. And it's good right now, but I don't know if I trust it.
When you think back to where we were at a month ago, it's pretty wild to think the Penguins and Rangers are going to play on Friday night. And if the Penguins win that game, they're going to jump the New York Rangers in the standings. I know the games played don't line up. Pittsburgh's played a handful more, but still, just that fact alone right there probably has Rangers fans a little bit concerned. And again, should have Penguins fans maybe raising an eyebrow, being like, hold on, maybe we aren't quite as bad as we thought. But even when I ask you the question, like, do you believe in the Penguins? I'm wincing the whole time because it's like, I really think this is just a random middle of the season heater that every team kind of goes on. Like, bottom feeders will win 4 or 5 at certain points throughout the year. And, you know, maybe this shows the Penguins aren't a true bottom feeder. Maybe the lottery talk and all of that was a little bit of a hyperbole 2 weeks ago when we were doing it. But still, I mean, hey, Mike Sullivan's going to keep his job if they keep winning like this. And maybe, just maybe, the Penguins will stay in the mix. You mentioned the other Pennsylvania team, the Philadelphia Flyers. They've suddenly won 3 in a row as well. And that Metro division just keeps looking weirder and weirder because, again, the Penguins, Flyers, they win 4 and 3 in a row. And it's coupled with some tough stretches for the Rangers. And the Canes have lost 3 straight games as well. So it's kind of starting to get a little bit tighter in the Eastern Conference when you look at both divisions, quite honestly.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're hoping for here, right? Like, you know, this is the point when you look at, I believe it was Matt Larkin told me heading into the American Thanksgiving, it's like 76% of teams that are in the playoff spot stick there on average each year, which is a pretty good argument for cutting 20 games out of the season, right? And making it a shorter regular season. But I digress. You know, again, when it comes to the Flyers, I'm still not 100% convinced there. There's obviously been some trade rumors with some guys like Scott Lawton, a couple other players there. The goaltending scares me. You'll get one game where, you know, Fedotov or Kolosov or whoever's in net will go out there and steal a game, and then the next game they'll go out there and allow 4 to 5 goals, and they look like a disaster. Again, not fully convinced on them, but I think the one team here to keep an eye on, this is Captain Obvious speaking here, but the New York Rangers, like, they're going to figure it out, right? Like, I have a hard time believing that this team is as bad as we've kind of seen in recent games.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. They are starting to look more and more like a team who might need a change behind the bench to kind of kick themselves and some of their veterans back into gear. Let's move out west, Steven. It is the title of the show. It is our Dominion Lending Center's poll question. It's about the Minnesota Wild, who they're on a heater. 4 wins in a row for Minnesota, 7-2-1 in their last 10, and it's coupled with a 4-game losing streak from the Winnipeg Jets. And now, after that historic start to the year by the Jets, they're back in second place, looking up at a Minnesota Wild team that, again, 17-4-4 is just incredible. They have the best goals against per game in the NHL. The scoring's in the top half of the league. And now that you kind of start to look at their roster, and it's like, okay, maybe this isn't just the Kirill Kaprizov show. Matt Boldy is putting up some really good numbers, nearly a point a game. Marco Rossi's having a strong season as well. The goaltending continues to hold strong. So let me ask you, is it time to start using the word elite when we talk about the Minnesota Wild?
I learned at an early age to never trust the Minnesota Wild, and kind of like you don't trust the Toronto Maple Leafs heading into the playoffs, right? I think with the Wild, the things that are working, you see Kaprizov, all those points. Boldy, yeah, is playing great. Like Boldy is a star in the NHL. Marco Rossi having the season he's having has been great to see. Again, you just really wanted it to click given all the struggles he went through at a young age with missing pretty much entire season in COVID and seeing Philip Gustafsson going out there and playing well. I still wouldn't put them ahead of the Wild, though. And I think part of it is you still see where all the points are coming from Winnipeg, and they don't have a Kirill Kaprizov. They don't have a guy who's going to go out there and challenge for the scoring lead. But they've got Cal Connor at 29 points. They got Scheifele at 27. Nikolai Ehlers at 25. All three of those guys would be second on the Minnesota Wild in scoring. So I think we do need to see some offense shifted a bit more at a more consistent pace. We are starting to see it a bit right now with the team, but for me to feel fully confident, I need to see a team that can truly go out there and get offense from just about anyone. And at the same time, I also wouldn't doubt Kaprizov being able to lead the team himself. He's playing so good right now that I would not want to bet against him. But if I had to pick between those two, I'm still going the Jets because Connor Hellebuck's good, but they're scoring from everywhere.
Yeah, and that too, that Winnipeg forward group, that's one of the things coming into the year. I was like, I don't know if they have enough. And now you kind of look after seeing, again, close to 30 games this season, and it's like, no, they got enough juice there in Winnipeg. It's a really, really complete forward group. The other thing too with Minnesota, we all know this is the final year of their sort of dead cap hell, right? That 14 point whatever million from Suter and Parise dwindles down to just a couple $1 million after this season. And it'll be interesting to see how that impacts Bill Guerin at this deadline. He went and made a big swing for David Yaremchuk, but that's kind of a guy who's probably going to help you more down the line than this year. I wonder if Bill Guerin looks now and goes, okay, maybe I do need to add more than I thought I would.
Conspiracy theory. What if they'd end up trading David Yaremchuk to bring in a more immediate piece?
Flip them.
Hey, I could see it. I think the good thing about this team here is they've got a good young core here, right? Like Kaprizov's going to need more money in 26, but they got Boldy signed for a long time. They've got Eriksson signed for a long time. I think the fact that Liam Ogren is a good young player. They've got a couple of good pieces there that they're going to be able to build around. And I think that's an attractive option for teams. But I think they just kind of right now, I wouldn't, if I had a no trade clause, I would not be saying no to going to Minnesota because even though I'm still not fully believing them right now, they've got a good young core to at least be competitive the next couple of years, which I think wasn't that long ago where we were not looking at that being the case.
Hey, just quickly, since we're on the topic of the Central and you're our prospect guy, the Winnipeg Jets calling up Brad Lambert with Nikolai Ehlers placed on IR. What's your take on that?
I'm really excited to see what he's able to do. Not going out there and exploding the AHL with the numbers he has, but he's playing really well on a team that could use all the scoring help they can get. And someone that fell off a lot in the draft rankings in his draft year in 22, but ever since then, he's been so good. AHL last year proved that he could be a star player in that league, and I think he's going to give that team a nice boost.
All right, let's move along to one other game from last night that certainly grabbed the attention of the hockey world, and it was Johnny Gaudreau night as the Calgary Flames hosted the Columbus Blue Jackets. And hey, every tribute for Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew has been so touching at kind of every turn as we've worked our way through this season. But last night, certainly a special one as his two former clubs faced off for the first time this year. And I mean, we see his dad, Guy, and his mom and his wife all there in attendance and obviously getting emotional. We saw Sean Monahan getting emotional at a bunch of different points during last night. The game itself, secondary to all of this. It was the ceremony before. They had Johnny Gaudreau's goal song get performed during the ceremony. Just so many touching moments. And the Calgary Flames organization did a great job with this whole night, and the players as well. I mean, we saw them huddle around the Gaudreau family before the game, and then how about after the game? Johnny Gaudreau named the first star of the game. His dad, Guy, comes out to accept the honor, which again, just like such a touching thing. And I give Guy Gaudreau a ton of credit as well for having the strength to go out and do this. He was out there during morning skate using one of Johnny's old sticks that the Calgary Flames trainers had kept from his time with the team as well. Like, again, this was done really well. And again, I want to give some love to the players, because after the game, even Guy Gaudreau coming into the room for the Calgary Flames, I thought was really special, Steven.
It could not have been easy for those players to start the 60 minutes last night, given how incredible of a pregame presentation that was. And I got to give credit to the Gaudreau family for, it's obviously it's been a really rough few months, but they've been strong through it all. And they've had to go through a lot of these kind of, remembering games and things like that. But it was special just from start to finish. And it's something I hope we never have to see again of any other player. It's a night that was just, I'm never going to forget it. And I think for me, one of the lasting memories will probably be seeing Sean Monahan taking that opening face-off and seeing just how important that meant to him. Because, yeah, it was a few months ago, but that was one of his best friends in the world. And to see how important being able to be in a game to honor Johnny Gaudreau was very special. And, again, incredible job by the Calgary Flames to pull off what they did last night.
Yeah, and then you see Michael Backlund giving Guy the game puck at the end of the night too. So really special. Stick taps to the entire Flames and Blue Jackets organizations for one, putting this on, and two, their strength through it all. Steven, looking ahead a little bit, tonight, we are going to be getting the Four Nations rosters announced. We'll break them all down tomorrow, but as this stuff kind of happens, we got some leaks and we can kind of start to piece together at least how Canada's roster is going to look at this Four Nations face-off. And again, nothing is confirmed yet, but it sounds like Sam Bennett, Seth Jarvis are two guys up front who are making the team. Travis Konechny as well. I mean, Brandon Hagel was even a guy who I think you kind of looked down and were like, okay, is he in? Is he not? There are some surprising forward names here. One notable omission, Zach Hyman for me, obviously stands out. That's a guy who it felt like you could just staple next to Connor McDavid, and then you're good. You got 2/3 of your top line sorted out, and chemistry won't be an issue. Any name on this forward group surprise you?
I think for sure it's got to be Seth Jarvis. And he, looking at it overnight, he does feel like a guy who can kind of be a perfect 13th forward for that team. He's got the energy. He's going to go out there and maybe play the penalty kill. We'll see there. He can do a lot. So, yeah, he might not be putting up Martin Netchess numbers. He's not Connor McDavid, but I think he's going to be able to play a role. And that's the thing about this tournament is you can go just pure all-star team, but that's not going to work. That doesn't work at any international tournament. And I think, the Americans, the Finns, the Swedes, like specifically Finland and Sweden, don't have the scoring depth. So they have to find other ways to go out there and win games. And that could be by grinding hard and doing things like that, playing good defensive hockey. And I think with Canada, Seth Jarvis kind of fits a few roles where if someone gets hurt and you need to upgrade him in the lineup, we'll see that. But I'm also not 100% convinced that this is the exact lineup we're going to see on game one, because of course we probably have some injuries coming along the way. So we'll see what happens there, but can't predict that.
Yeah, and again, when these things get officially announced, we're going to spend a lot of time tomorrow breaking it down on the show. But like Hagel, Bennett, Cirelli, do you think maybe they lean too hard into going with role players over maybe just taking the best players and figuring it out? In such a short tournament, it's tough.
I think the good thing is the fact that this is kind of being seen as an Olympic tune-up tournament. They could try things like this. And if it doesn't work, then say, yep, we're going to go pure skill next year. And, I know a lot of people had Connor Bedard making the team. I still had my reservations about him even before the season started, because it's like you're still asking a lot out of a 19-year-old to be one of the best players on this team. And I didn't think he was going to be a bottom six guy. So you're going to give some good opportunities here. I will say, I know the World Championship doesn't get the most love in Canada, Brandon Hagel played outstanding at this tournament last year, which is partly why I was hoping to see him with John Tavares again, because they were just so dynamite. It seemed like they'd been playing together forever, but they hadn't. That was their first time playing together, and they looked great. But I think, going out there and having a guy like Cirelli who could be that defensive forward, we know what Mark Stone's capable of when they're healthy. Again, not the most skilled lineup they could have brought, but they got guys that if this plan works out, they can learn some stuff for the next Olympics. Or maybe it doesn't work out and they go all pure skill next year and they try something different.
It's interesting that you bring up the World Championships thing, because it really does feel like they have a soft spot for the players who go to the World Championships and perform there. And then when you go to the blue line, Colton Parayko, Sam Montembeault between the pipes as well. The Parayko one is really interesting to me because, listen, he is a St. Albert boy. We are from the same hometown in Alberta. I should be biased. I should be the one saying, yes, Colton Parayko's there. I love it. But he's not one of the best 7 Canadian defensemen in the NHL right now. So that pick puzzled me. And then Montembeault as well. I was a little like, there were hotter hands out there that I feel like you could have gone with, and you still could have gotten the youth side of it if you would have went with maybe like a Logan Thompson. But what'd you make of those two?
I think for goalie, I'm less concerned because you just need one guy to be hot, right? And if that's Jordan Bennington, fine. If that's Aiden Hill, sure. Maybe it is Montembeault, who was outstanding at the World Championship a couple years ago on a team that probably shouldn't have been as good as they were. So I'm not too concerned who's in net, especially when you look at the team. Like, there's still a lot of good players. Like, these goalies are not going to play or face the number of shots they might face in an average NHL game. When it comes to Parayko, it seemed like that was a name that was rumored early on, and I still have a hard time accepting it. It's like even to an argument, Devon Toews is not playing 100% like Devon Toews can. Of course, you probably were not going to split up that duo of him and Cale Makar, just like you're not going to split up Theodore and Pietrangelo. But when it comes to Parayko, yeah, I kind of have to agree here. It feels like you're maybe leaning on like him being a shutdown guy, him being more physical, but I don't know. Not a guy I'd be picking on this team.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We're going to have full breakdowns tomorrow once the official rosters are announced. Let's continue along and get to our big segment for the day. It's the next wave, and it's brought to you by Fountain Tire. You and your family's safety is important. They'll treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle, whether it's new tires or maybe your engine has a little rattle. Stop in a Fountain Tire today, and they'll sort you out. Right now, you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 select tires, including Goodyear, until December 14th, plus $50 on any service of $150 or more. Some restrictions apply. Stop in a Fountain Tire or make an appointment at fountaintire.com. Some more roster talk, Steven. The World Junior Camp rosters were announced earlier this week for both Canada and the United States. And from the Canadian perspective, there were a couple of interesting names and a couple of interesting omissions in this conversation. Let's start there. Which player that was left off Canada's World Junior Camp roster surprised you the most?
I think it's got to be Michael Misa. And, I think there's an argument to be made that they didn't want to bring all these super, small or super young guys, and they're going to be bringing Gavin McKenna. They're bringing Porter Martone. So they're bringing guys for the next 2 drafts. But Misa has 25 goals in 25 games in the OHL. Like, if you need scoring, there literally isn't a better option than Michael Misa. But I guess the argument here was they have a lot of guys who could put up a lot of points on the board, whether it be someone like Andrew Cristal, whether it be Gavin McKenna, Carson Raykopf. And I think just finding that right role for Misa was going to be a bit difficult. But to not bring him to camp, that feels a little off. Everyone makes kind of a lot of big statements about, oh, this team's not very good. They left off so many good players. There were a lot of guys that were just not going to make the team, and it feels like they cut those guys off pretty quickly. I will say Cameron Allen making it as a defenseman is shocking, given I have not seen anything positive from his play in the last 3 years. So I don't know. We'll see there. But yeah, when it comes to Misa, he should have at least been invited to camp.
Yeah, like those numbers, like almost 2 points a game. Like, that's insane. A goal per game. If you need scoring, and in a short tournament, even if he's in your bottom 6, you would think like a guy like that who can score at any point can change the outcome of any game, even in limited minutes. So yeah, I thought the Misa omission was very interesting. As we work our way through camp, is there any kind of battle for a certain spot on the roster that you find most interesting?
I think just looking at the scoring depth here, this is a team that can, again, talking about guys who could score. Someone like Carson Raykopf, who had over 50 goals last year, might not make this team. And that's just because there's a bunch of other guys who could do other things. You look at Andrew Cristal, a guy who I absolutely love, a Washington Capitals prospect. He's pretty small. I think he's listed now at 5'10". He was 5'8", not a great skater, but he's on pace for like 140 or 150 points this year in the WHL. Like unbelievable numbers. And you see he's got a goal per game too, but that's not the thing that makes him good. It's the fact that he's an incredible playmaker and got great hands. He's not a guarantee to make this team either. So I think when it comes to Canada, their defense, I'm not expecting a ton of drama there. They're bringing 4 goalies. Feels like the one underage goalie, Jack Ivankovic, will be the one that doesn't go. But they got a lot of guys who could put pucks in the net and produce offense up front. And that, I think, is going to make it pretty interesting.
Really interesting. As we move from Canada to the United States, I guess sort of a similar question, but when you look at this group that they've invited to camp and how the potential roster could shake out, how would you describe this, or what's the most fascinating element, I guess, of this group with the USA?
I think that they're bringing, I think it's only 28 players to their training camp. So they're only going to cut like 3 guys. But what they're bringing is guys who know how to play depth roles. Teddy Stiga. I've talked about him on the show many times, more than anybody should be talking about a non-first round prospect. But he's kind of a player I want every team in the NHL to have, because he can go out there and throw hits. He knows how to score. He can play with skilled guys. And Frank was saying that yesterday. There's talent in being able to play with talented players. And that's what Teddy Stiga does so well. But then AJ Spellacy, the Chicago Blackhawks prospect, can do the same thing. You got Chris Pelosi. You've got Carey Terrence, all guys who play pretty big roles with their teams throughout the year, but maybe didn't always do that and played, deeper roles. They're good defensively. They've got energy. So when we're looking at Canada leaving off a potential 70 goal scorer in Michael Misa, USA doesn't have that issue. But what they do have are guys who I would argue are better at the roles they're going to play than some guys on Team Canada going to be trying to play in some of those similar roles there. So when it comes to it, it's how many good role depth guys they have that will make them very difficult to play against.
So give me your favorite heading into this tournament, as again, we're 20-ish days away from the start of things. Give me your favorite, and then give me out of that kind of next group, who's a team that can maybe surprise us?
Well, I'm going with Canada as the favorite right now. I feel like that's just a team that's, again, the fact you can leave off Michael Misa, who might get the most goals by an OHL, NHL draft eligible prospect in the 2000s, is incredible. When it comes to which team kind of below that to keep an eye out for, Slovakia. And I've said that, I think, 2 years ago too, and they did pretty well. When it comes to the Slovaks, if they get Dalibor Dvorsky, they also have a guy, Maxim Sturbak, who's about to play in his 5th World Juniors. At some point, they got to name the tournament after him. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a record. But they've got some good guys who've been around the block. They know what they're doing. They should have some decent goaltending, and the scoring will be good. It all depends on whether or not Dalibor Dvorsky will be there, though.
Interesting. Slovakia team to keep an eye on. We'll continue the World Junior preview. Steven has it covered like a blanket over at dailyfaceoff.com as well. That's a wrap on this week's edition of The Next Wave, brought to you by Fountain Tire. Moving along to our daily face-off inbox question, #AskDFO. It's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program. It all comes with their unbeatable pricing policy. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Steven, we got a couple of questions here in the chat we can handle. Brian is in. Who does Steven think will be called up and make an impact this year like Stankoven on Dallas last year? Is there a player in the American League who you're looking at and going, they can make an impact at the NHL?
Frankie Nazar out of Chicago, putting up unbelievable numbers, like might get 60, 70 points this year in Rockford. I think for me, I just wanted to see him play consistent, get a lot of ice time, and get those opportunities to dominate, because he was very good in the Tom Curver's prospect tournament, struggled in the preseason, and then obviously was cut. I think when it comes to what he could do with the NHL now, he's figured it out. He figured out how to drive that play. He's good in the power play. And, maybe you don't make him center. Maybe you put him on the wing, and maybe he's the answer of who should be playing with Connor Bedard as opposed to whoever random 4th-line guy they could find. So Frankie Nazar, I'm starting to become high on him again. For a while, I was starting to go, I don't know. Right now, I'm feeling pretty high about him.
Jeremiah is in with one for me. Is Jacob Trouba a guy Tyler would want on the Oilers? There's just no way. He's not a good partner for Darnell Nurse. The Oilers need to be going after a puck mover, and unless the Rangers are willing to keep 50%, which I'm not sure why they would, there's no reason for the Oilers to be going down that one. Also, a funny one in from Ryan, who says, if Blackhawks keep struggling, can the Hawks loan Connor Bedard for the World Juniors? Steven, it is insane to think Connor Bedard is still World Junior eligible.
To think the numbers he put up 2 years ago were incredible. Imagine if he did this. And I put out a tweet of him stick handling, and I'm like, you know who's still eligible for the World Juniors, right? It's like, and people were like serious, like, oh, he should go. It's like, he won't, but I would love that. Why, hey, maybe his dream is to play against Oliver Moore on the United States and their a future Blackhawk teammate. Maybe he wants to get a chance to play against him on New Year's Eve.
Also, him in that one World Junior, now that I'm just thinking back to it, that overtime winner that he scored was so nasty, Steven. That was one of my favorite recent World Junior performances, was the way Bedard dominated.
And that was against Adam Gayon, a fellow Chicago Blackhawks prospect.
Oh, there you go. All right, let's wrap up this part of the show with our Dominion Lending Center's poll question results. Is your mortgage up for renewal? Lock in the best rates and products with Dominion Lending Centers. Visit dominionlending.ca to find out more. Steven, our poll question, are the Minnesota Wild Cup contenders? 56% of people saying yes, 44 saying no. Where do you come out on that one? What do you think?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be swayed at this point. I still feel like they need a couple more scoring options, but let's be real. The stats don't lie. They're getting it done right now.
Yeah, and if one of those two goalies can just kind of continue to be hot, they can continue to have success. Let's move along to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Couple of plays I like today in the NHL. The first one, I like the Boston Bruins to keep playing good hockey. They've been doing that under Joe Sacco. Them on the puck line against the Chicago Blackhawks tonight is a pretty juicy plus 165. The Hawks have lost 3 in a row. The Boston Bruins have won 2 in a row. Even though the Bruins are on the road, I like this spot. And I like Ryan O'Reilly, 3+ shots on goal. He's done it in only 3 of his last 5. But the payout is plus 215. So better than 2-1 odds on this bad boy. I like Ryan O'Reilly, 3+ shots on goal in a semi-revenge game because he is taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. So those are your bets for our friends at Bet365, which brings us to garbage time. And something Colby and Frank talked about yesterday on the show was Patrik Laine playing his first game in almost a year. It was December 13th of 2023, the last time we saw him in a regular season NHL game. And Patrik Laine finds the back of the net, Steven. He looked like he has not missed a beat in his first game as a Montreal Canadian.
I was telling a guy in my fantasy league to drop Patrik Laine, and then he scored like 2 minutes later. So, well, what do I know? But yeah, it's good to see that because, for Laine, it's not just been one season of injuries. It's been a bunch. He has missed a lot of time in the last couple of years. So it could be easy for, again, I talk about confidence being so important for a goal scorer. It's been a while since he's been an elite goal scorer in the NHL, right? It's been a while since he's got those 30 goals. So for him to go that long without being able to produce, without being able to play, then coming out and playing as good as he did last night, I think that's good because it wasn't just that goal. Like, he actually had a pretty solid game at both ends of the ice. And I know Kobe and Frank were talking about it yesterday about like making sure he feels comfortable out there and that he's just ready to go. Don't expect him to put up a ton of points on the board. You know what? He's got a motivation right now to prove that he could still be a very good player. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the Canadians do with him as well. Remember the set of moves they made around Sean Monahan, right? They got a first-round pick for taking him on from the Calgary Flames, then flipped him at the deadline for another first and another conditional third-rounder. So with Laine, I know they had to give up Jordan Harris, but they had so many young defensemen. They got a second-round pick for taking this guy, and now you sit and look, one more year on his deal at $8.7 million. If he's a long-term piece there, the deal's a home run. Or you sit there and go, maybe we sell off the final year. Maybe Patrik Laine goes on a goal-scoring run. And it is easy to forget he's only 26 years old. Like, he's been in the league for 8 seasons, 8 seasons, and he's had a couple of different stops, but he's only 26.
Yeah, he's still young and he's still got a lot of good hockey to go here at this point, and I do expect he'll be on the Four Nations team. So, again, no shortage of motivation for him to perform. And again, at least the good thing is if it doesn't work out, Montreal can kind of eat that cap space up because we're not expecting him to be good for another couple of years. It was worth the risk from the start.
Yeah, it was a great move. All right, that is a wrap on today's edition of Daily Faceoff Live. Tomorrow, Frank Saravalli is back in the mix. We'll break down the Four Nations rosters after they get officially announced and more on tomorrow's edition of the show. A big thank you to Steven, our producer, Pat Puff, for doing a bang-up job today. Everybody in the YouTube chat, even with the chirping, you guys were tremendous, and we hope to see you all back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Enjoy your Wednesday. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content, from daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.